joined by two of my colleagues, Lakeisha Jones, who's a full-time faculty member teaching the addictions courses, and Dr. Ken Martz, who also teaches our addictions courses. And they'll be sharing a little bit about themselves, but I wanted to just welcome everybody. Thank you for spending some time with us. We are recording this evening, so anything you put in the chat or anything you share on the microphone is being recorded. We will send out the recording after tonight's webinar. And without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Martz.
All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome. Welcome. So glad to see everybody. So as mentioned, I've been with psychologists. I've been with Purdue for about 5 years now. And I've been practicing in addictions for about 30 years now. So I love this work. Happy to share this with you all tonight. And so honored to have Terrance Walton joining us tonight. And I'm going to pass over also for just a moment to Lakeisha Jones for introductions before we continue on.
Thank you, Ken. Good evening, everyone. My name is Lakeisha Jones, and I am the undergraduate professor that teaches the addiction courses. I've been with Purdue for 5 years as well, and have worked in the addictions field for about 18 years. Very active in NAADAC and participating in some of the committees, and just happy and thrilled that Terrance is joining us to share his knowledge. And as we transition with Terrance, I would like to at least tell you a little bit about him. He's a very accomplished executive director with NAADAC. For the past decade, Terrance has served as the Chief Operating Officer for All Rise, which is founded as the National Association for Drug Court Professionals, and he's led numerous national and international initiatives to develop the addiction treatment workforce and improve effectiveness of substance use disorders treatment. Terrance has directed prevention and addiction-focused programs in Ohio, Wisconsin, and Washington, D.C., and he's assisted such programs nationwide. So without further ado, I'm going to transition to Terrance. Terrance, I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen so that you can present your slides. And Terrance, take it away. Thank you so much.
Very good. Thank you, Lakeisha and Dr. Martz and Dr. Rivera and the other person I forgot to thank. Thank you for your invitation to be here. Let me just make this work here. I want to share. Let's see if that'll work there. So can you see my slides? You can, can't you? I bet you can. Can you see it?
Yes, thank you.
I believe you can. All right, so good morning, everyone. Let me just, good afternoon. It's been a long day. So first of all, it's my honor to be here today. As you just heard, you could probably gather, if you added up the years I've been around in the field, that I've had the privilege of being able to spend my entire professional career of more than 3 decades, the honor of never having to take a job that wasn't directly related to prevention, treatment, recovery management. That I don't take that for granted. There are many people who work hard and do well, but not everyone is able to walk and to work and be paid for doing what their passion is and what their calling is. And that's the honor that I have today. So thank you for letting me be here. I have there's a couple big things that matter. That what matters most are the other 3 heartbeats that live in this house with me, my wife and our 2 school-age children, who, by the way, are home and awake. So they may come in and say hello, even though they promised to give Daddy an hour. We'll see what happens. But as long as my family is well taken care of and knows how much they are loved and how much I believe in them, then if that's well taken care of, then my reason for being on earth is really to help men and women break free and stay free from addiction. And for most of my career, that has involved helping people who are helping people, teaching people who are helping people, supporting people who are helping people. And so with that, sort of being the theme of my career, you can imagine how pleased I am to be helping to lead an organization like NAADAC, the Association for Addiction Professionals. And I want to talk some about the addiction field, who the addiction professional is, how NAADAC, as well as our affiliate there in Pennsylvania, the Pennsylvania Association for Addiction Professionals, how we seek to serve the field. I also, want to talk about some of my concerns about what we're facing, about the need to have more folks like you who are interested in learning how to help, support, empower, and in some cases treat people who are living with addiction or at risk for it. My concerns for the fact that we don't have enough people my kids' age or folks in college who are dreaming about becoming an addiction professional. We need more of that because the need is as great as it's ever been before. So we'll talk about some of that. We'll also spend a little bit of time, and we only have less than an hour, but we'll spend a little bit of time talking about some of the challenges we are facing right now today, especially in light of the current political and social environment, and some of the challenges it faces for people who are living with addiction and mental health issues, as well as the professionals, the people, and the programs and providers that are attempting to assist them. So that's what we'll try to do. And I'm going to stop in time to have some questions. And that almost never happens, but I'm going to do that today. I'm going to be sure that we have some time so I'm going to go through some slides quickly. I'm happy to send slides to anyone who wants them because I won't try to hit everything. All right. So first of all, who is NAADAC? Who is the NAADAC, the Association for Addiction Professionals? These are slides I got to do. These are the ones I have to do to be sure that everyone knows who we are. We represent the what's at least 100,000 addiction professionals all across this nation and beyond. And when I talk about an addiction professional, when anyone from NAADAC or from our Pennsylvania affiliate talks about an addiction professional, we mean the whole spectrum. We mean people like me, who was an addiction counselor for a few years, who has run addiction treatment programs. We mean addiction counselors. We also mean prevention specialists. We include those who deliver harm reduction services to keep people alive while they try to find their way. We mean individuals who are providing recovery support, including peers and peer professionals that we'll talk about today, who work to support those who are on, trying to find their way. We talk about, it includes, those who teach in addiction studies programs, those who research addiction treatment and recovery related matters, and as well as those who are committed in lots of ways to developing programs for providing places for addiction professionals to work. That's who we consider addiction professionals, the entire gamut. And in fact, if you ask me what NAADAC, NAADAC stands for, I'm not allowed to tell you. We never talk about that. Our official forward-facing name is NAADAC, the Association for Addiction Professionals. NAADAC is a legacy term that sort of limited us to addiction counselors and included terms like abuse, and so we never spell it out anymore. So I'm not allowed to tell you. You can't make me tell you what NAADAC used to stand for. Recognize today that it does what it has for a long time, and that is to represent all of us who, as our primary work, somehow in the addiction field, or a part of what we do. We work with probation officers who are supervising and perhaps providing services or connecting people with services who are living with addiction. We work with teachers and allied health professionals who have, among the people they are encountering, are living with addiction. That's who we are. We have just over 14,000 members. These are people, and I'll talk about membership in just a minute, who pay a little bit in order to be a part of this association and both receive the services of membership but more importantly, are part of the movement. That no matter where they are or what they do in this space, they recognize they are part of something bigger. And especially for those who are considering, what their path will look like, those who are at a stage in their career where, like me, at a point, they want to have a broader impact. Perhaps they want to work at the system level. Perhaps they want to run programs and build programs. Perhaps they want to advocate, with legislators. Then an organization like NAADAC, as well as all of our affiliates, across the country, that can really assist in building the expertise to be able to demonstrate that you have been a part of a committee or led a committee or led an affiliate. That's a part of it. We'll talk more about that. We're organized in affiliates. We have affiliates in most of the states, as well as the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico, as well as internationally. Anyone, in almost everywhere in the country, if you want to join NAADAC, you join NAADAC through our affiliates. We also have 90,000 or more individuals who perhaps hold one of our credentials and who we otherwise who follow us and who we email and who are part of. This is really our opportunity to bring everyone together and highlight those topics that matter most to people who are trying to do this work. This year, it'll be in Seattle, Washington. I don't like to read my slides. That's poor form. Those of you who present know it's poor form to read slides. You all can read at this point, but I'm going to read this one because this mission is important. And I kind of have it memorized, sort of. Because back a year and several months ago, when I was considering and being considered for this position, I said, well, I probably should memorize NAADAC's mission and vision in case they asked me to recite it. They didn't, but I thought, let me memorize this. So I haven't said it in a while, but I did have it memorized at one point. And that is NAADAC's mission. The mission of this organization is to lead, unify, and empower addiction-focused professionals to achieve excellence. That's what it's about, to achieve excellence through education, advocacy, knowledge, standards of practice, ethics, professional development, and research. And that really does describe what this organization seeks to do today and what it has done to one extent or the other for the last 53 years. So whether you're talking about NAADAC or any other organization which is committed to the behavioral health workforce, and there's several of us. We have colleague organizations all across the country who do similar work, at least to aspects of what NAADAC does. That recognizing that that the need for effective helping services, effective treatment, effective interventions for people who are living with addiction or at risk for that the need for that is greater today than it's ever been. We need a workforce, men and women, who are willing to commit a portion of their life, of their professional life, to helping this. And so we have a strategy for that. And this is a strategy used broadly across organizations like ours. One is about really trying to see how we can strengthen those who are delivering addiction-related and or mental health-related services to people, as well as who are delivering supportive services to make that more possible. One is about strengthening the workforce. And that means a lot of things. It really means that looking at the addiction professional and determining what can we do to help them be more effective, to be more competent, to have greater influence. One day maybe you'll have me come and talk some about like job and career success and satisfaction. I spend some time with professionals, helping them to think about how they are doing in their career path and how it's feeling to them. That it's possible to be successful, but not satisfied. It's not likely that if you're not successful, you're going to be satisfied, but there are lots of people who are successful and could be successful at almost anything. Some of you are like that you could choose a number of career paths and you would do that well. But there's probably only one or two career paths that actually will be meaningful enough to you for you to be satisfied. And so when I think when NAADAC and those of us who work at NAADAC think about how we strengthen the workforce, it's also about how do we help their jobs work better for them? How do we strengthen them and empower them and equip them and educate them and connect them in ways that helps to strengthen the overall workforce and help the individual worker fulfill sort of what they want to be doing. It's also today about enlarging the workforce. There's not enough of us. I wish that wasn't true. I wish that things were such that it would run all of us out of business and we'd have to open up some other kind of association, but that's not going to happen anytime soon. That nearly everyone out there has been impacted by addiction, and about the numbers vary between 25 and 30% of families have a family member who has been touched by addiction, is living with it, or has entered into recovery, who has lost their life. That happens all the time. So we need more of us. We need a wider variety of people, and we need new individuals interested in being engaged in that workforce. So that means that, yes, we want people like me who has dedicated his or her entire life to this field. We also want people who are going to do something else, but that something else is going to intersect with people or communities or systems impacted by addiction. And part of NAADAC's mission is also to connect with those. That's part of why I'm here. I don't assume that everyone here is, I don't know, you might all be a part of the addiction workforce or expect to be, but maybe not. But it's very likely that what you do will intersect with people. And so we want to educate you as well on how to do what you do best. But none of us operate in isolation. Even those of us who are really independent and try to, be self-sufficient and get the job done and do we have to by hook or crook, even if no one else is supporting us, none of us operates in a vacuum. We operate within an environment, within a structure. We operate within a payment structure, within an economic structure. We operate within the confines of organizations, of regulations, of laws. And part of NAADAC's job and part of how we serve our members and others is by helping to advocate and work for structures that help to equip and support those of us doing this work. It's a significant part of what my job is. It's a really important reason an individual might want to be a part and support something like this, because we don't just sit back and hope that legislators come up with good ideas for helping us to do our job. We don't simply drift with whatever the political winds are, and we work often in partnership with other organizations to advocate for, fight for structural and other changes that'll help make the job easier. So this is important. All of this matters. And I'm happy to answer questions about that if you got any questions about it. At the end of the day, NAADAC is a membership organization, and I don't let many days go by without my remembering that. We do lots of things today, and most of what we do doesn't only benefit our members, but that's who we are. That's who we are. That's who we represent. And so, we have, I'm not going to go through all of them today. We have various levels of membership, people who join us because they are currently actively engaged in the addiction profession. Others who we have a sort of an associate membership category that you see there for people who are either working toward licensure or certification, or perhaps they're an allied professional. They work in some kind of other area. However, they interact with people living with addiction. Sometimes family members want to choose this option. Sometimes, educators, etc. It's a membership level for those who are not necessarily addiction professionals in the strictest sense, but they are a part of us. I'll talk a little bit more in just a moment about the peer recovery support specialist certification, which is one I really want to focus on. It is one of our newer ones and one of the ones that is showing the most growth really nationwide, not just our peer credential, but also the peer professional credential being offered by the other major certification board. And we also have membership level, which is, for students, which is priced a little bit lower. Sometimes students have as much money as anybody else, but sometimes not. But it's also, we're really recruiting heavily to get more student members, more younger professionals who are maybe in master's programs or in undergrad programs or otherwise pursuing addiction studies, because that's where the future is. At some point, I need to retire. If my kids weren't so young, I might be closer to that than I am. But at some point, I want to retire, and Ken wants to retire, Dr. Morris wants to retire, and we need people to hand off to. So, and then we also have a level for those who are retired and who still believe in us and support us, and they're a big part of who we are today and who supports this work. If you're interested in membership, hey, hit that QR code or go to that website, go to the NAADAC website, NAADAC.org, or click on the QR code there to find out more about that. I'd love to have you be a part of us. That matters. I'm not going to talk about all of these, so when I get to each slide, so I just pause right here and cover these sort of 6 major areas, and I'll talk about a couple before we begin to wrap up and have some questions. That, NAADAC, one of the things that we do is we try to really advance the field through our advocacy. NAADAC is a 501c6. We're a nonprofit, but the main organization, NAADAC, is not a 501c3. Because we are 501c6, among the things that are different is that we can actively lobby. We have hired, we have a government relations firm, a lobbying firm that lobbies and advocates on behalf of our priorities. We also, by the way, have a nonprofit foundation, but the organization itself is a 501c6, which allows us to not have to hide the fact that we are actively lobbying legislators and their staffs, their offices on the priorities that matter most to people and families and communities impacted by addiction and those of us who are serving them. And, I must confess to you that 30 years ago, when I began in the field, actually it's a little more than 30, but I'm just kind of sticking with 30 now. 30 years ago, I discovered, after some wandering around to different areas of study, took me a minute to settle on that I wanted to be an addiction professional. I wanted to be a preacher forever. And then when I decided, I don't think so, I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I was a communications major. Then I was in business and marketing and worked my way all around to end up in psychology and eventual social work once I realized that this is the work I wanted to do. But I didn't know about NAADAC. It was around then. I didn't know that. If I had, what an amazing opportunity it would have been for me to connect early with the community of other professionals, other addiction professionals. I did have the benefit of some great mentors that helped me along the way, but I would have been the kind of young man who would have joined something like NAADAC to be a part of, because I knew pretty quickly I wanted to have a broad impact. I knew I wouldn't do direct services for my whole career. And so NAADAC really helps to create identity and community and reduce stigma and help to help us become better and more effective by synergies. So we have online forum for that purpose and lots of other opportunities for people to connect and support each other. A big part of what we do is delivering education through webinars, through our conferences, through our training and technical assistance program, through our support for addiction studies programs. We have a commission. We help to run a commission that helps to ensure that addiction studies programs are delivering content that will help give you the knowledge that you need to practice effectively. As I've already talked about, it's about recruitment and workforce development. That's a part of why I'm here. I mean, I'm here just to say hello and I love being in this virtual space, and I just want to get to know you. But I'm also here to encourage you and to hopefully to recruit you into the field and to see how, if there's something I can say today or answer that'll help you become more effective. We also have some responsibility for setting the standards for the profession, for ensuring that individuals who are credentialed have a certain knowledge base, for helping to contribute to SAMHSA guidance. And SAMHSA is the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. As you probably know, that's the federal agency that really sort of oversees addiction and mental health services in America. And we have contributed to standards they've developed for practice, and some of our own standards for helping to define the scope and nature of the addiction field. And then I mentioned the credentialing, which I will focus on that in a little more detail in a couple of minutes. So we saw that already. Am I going the wrong direction? So listen, let's talk about some of the advocacy points. Some of you might be interested in sort of the bigger picture, sort of how we work at the structural level, at the government level, where laws are made and regulations are made. Most of NAADAC's work is national, the national office, but our affiliates, including in Pennsylvania and in states all across the country, there's also state advocacy going on, because when it comes to addiction services and when it comes to those who are providing those services, they're both laws and regulations from the federal level that matter, and laws and regulations and guidelines at the state, county, and local levels that matter. So we work from every areas. I'll talk quickly in case some of you are interested about some of our top priorities today. Frankly, in light of the new administration and some of the things we are hearing that may be coming from in the current budget resolution that's being negotiated, or perhaps in some other ways, we're concerned about protecting Medicaid. Medicaid is the largest single provider of addiction and mental health services to people that's out there. And protecting Medicaid as it currently is, as a partnership jointly between the federal and the state, that has over time provided increasing amounts of funding so the people who need help can get that help. There is no more important priority to NAADAC today, as well as many of our partners. And in many ways, we are working to protect Medicaid by any means necessary. We've also been successful in working with our partners in making progress toward developing parity between those who are receiving substance use disorder services and those who are receiving like other medical care. But listen, some insurance plans, they don't provide great services at all for anyone. But what parity says is that even if the coverage isn't great, those who are receiving addiction services should be covered in the same way, to the same extent as those who are being treated for some other disease. That's about parity. And there's laws in the books now which make parity the law of the land. And we don't have any reason to believe that's gonna change. And we've advocated for that. But the proof is in the pudding. And the reality is, even though we have parity legislation, there really is, other than some kind of class action lawsuit of some kind, there really is no enforcement mechanism. So it's a continuing effort to actually achieve the aspirations of parity. But it's an important part of what we do for those who need help, and for those of us who need to be able to deliver that help and also make a living. Good example is Medicare is the federal government's health insurance plan, and we're working to ensure that addiction counselors can become Medicare providers. We have some progress there. We're not quite there yet. Some of you may be aware of the STAR HIDA, the STAR loan repayment program, where people can get significant amounts of their loans, reimbursed or repaid for their education. There is a minority fellowship program where people can get $15,000 scholarships, as well as a mentor for master's level addiction studies. And these are really important programs that frankly are at risk today, right now. And we are working to try and maintain those. The minority fellowship program in particular could bump up against some of the executive orders tied to diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as the ones related to EEO. So we're concerned about that program. Funding's been frozen right now, but not eliminated. It's an appropriated line item, so we'll see what happens there. But even before this current year, we and our partners have fought for those programs. We've advocated for them. The Minority Fellowship Program has been around for as long as NAADAC has almost. And we are trying to protect them in this moment so that we right now have 43 Minority Fellowship Fellows in the Addiction Counseling Program. And they're right now in the program, and we'd like to be able to get another batch for next year as well. And then there are other things we do, the block grants that fund a ton of treatment out there. They go right to providers to deliver services to people who can't pay for them. We support all of those. These are parts of who we are and part of how we advocate. I talked about creating identity. You guys got that. You know that's important. We talked about the importance of quality education. You are living that right now. We appreciate the work of Purdue Global in that effort. And I'll talk about one particular course, which is helpful in just a moment. So we talked about some of this. So let's sort of wrap this up by talking about credentialing. And that is, that's super important. There's two major credentialing boards in the US, and one of those boards is under the auspices of NAADAC. We have a commission called the National Certification Commission for Addiction Professionals. We just call it NCAP. This is a board of commissioners at the national level who oversee the credentialing of addiction professionals in the U.S. Who come under NCAP certification. They fall within the umbrella of NAADAC. However, when it comes to the test items, deciding cutoff levels, the concepts of the test, they operate fully independent of me and my staff. My staff is there to support and administer the program, but the integrity of the tool itself, of the examinations of the credential, is fully controlled by the board, and that's important. But this is important too, that we'll never be successful, in advocating for people who deliver addiction services, including peer professionals, to be able to be reimbursed by insurance companies and Medicare. We'll never be successful in that without being able to attest to a competence level and a level of professionalism by those who practice. Now, there's a role for everyone, and we have a number of credentials for a broad swath of people. But for those especially for those who are, who have higher degrees or who have otherwise demonstrated a level of knowledge and competence, where they, need to be able to deliver services and be paid for that, their credential matters. And no field like ours will ever be able to fully serve, to fully be recognized as a profession with our credentialing. So NCAP is a part of that. We offer this array of credentials that you see there. We have sort of 3 levels of addiction counseling credential. The first level being the NCAC1. This is for the entry-level addiction counselor, all the way up to the MAC, the Master of Addiction Counselor. The Master Addiction Counselor is the most recognized credential of its kind. It is the creme de la creme, and all of us who in the addiction counseling field, like, we're working toward the MAC, one way or the other. It's at that level that we have had some success in being sure there's people who hold that degree can be licensed by their state and be reimbursed. There's also a new credential that we are now beta testing called the National Certification in Nicotine and Tobacco Treatment. This is being beta tested right now. We had a certificate before. We developed a credential. We're issuing that credential even during the beta test for those who end up in careers where this credential is important. We also have a number of endorsements. One in particular, this is not a full credential, but this is a course of study and a certificate endorsement that says that you are qualified to be a national clinical supervisor. The last one I want to talk about is the National Certified Peer Recovery Support Specialist. This is one that is really growing today. But before I do that, I should point out that we are happy to that our Pennsylvania affiliate, we've assisted in establishing the Pennsylvania Certification Commission for Addiction Professionals. There are now 2 commissions in Pennsylvania that credential addiction professionals, and PAP is, the Pennsylvania Certification Commission for Addiction Professionals, PCAP is one of them. And, if you have more questions about that, I can answer them, but that's super important. This credential, which is one of the ones that is issued both nationally and otherwise, is for people with lived experience. There was a time when nearly everyone who was an addiction counselor was a person in recovery. That's no longer the case today. We still have plenty of credentialed professionals who are in recovery, but I'm not in recovery, at least from a substance use disorder, and many people are not. But we also have a whole category of people who have had 2 years or more of recovery, however they define it, who are interested in working in professional settings, helping people along the way. Not like an AA or NA sponsor, which is non-professional on purpose, and not like a clinician, not like a certified counselor, but a brand new professional where I'm a person with lived experience, I'm in recovery, and I have a credential that has a scope of work and its own set of a code of ethics and its way of working to sometimes as a part of a multidisciplinary clinical team, a certified peer recovery support specialist. I encourage you to find out more about that if that's your category. It's a great way to be a part of the field, even if you don't yet haven't reached all your educational goals. And one of the courses that Purdue Global offers that at least when I look at it, it should, and the docs can confirm this later, but it seems to me as I look at it, it should cover all of the 60 contact educational hours that are required, or most of them, if not all, is the Psychology 377 Models of Peer Recovery. Like, I don't know which happened first, but it's like the content of it is sort of the exact kind of education you're required to get in order to meet the education, contact hour requirement to receive this credential. Especially, I see ethics in there. I think it covers it all, but the docs can confirm that. But it's not many universities have that particular course. There'll probably be more in the future, but that's a really important component, and it provides the education that's needed for a person to receive this, to test and receive this credential. My last thing I'll say, and I think I do have time to do it too. Last thing I'm going to say is that I mentioned we have affiliates and we support our affiliates in many different ways. There's stuff we can do at the national level, but really it's at the state level and beyond where things really happen. And we rely on our affiliates, and Dr. Martz is our president of our Pennsylvania affiliate. We rely at that level. I need to know what I need to advocate for. I need to know what's really happening as we get closer to the street, close to the community, and our affiliates help us do that. Before we go to questions, I've got about a 3 or 4 minute little video. And I don't know if I shared sound. I don't know. I didn't see an option to share sound. So I don't know if it happens automatically. Does anyone out there know if I run a little video, whether it automatically will share the sound?
Yes, it will.
All right. Well, if it doesn't, who said that? Who told me that it will?
This was Bridget. It should work.
So if it doesn't, then Bridget was wrong. But this is just a couple minutes, but I think It's something I've used all around the world with the permission of the creators to help remind us about the reality of the issue we face, to help remind us of how real addiction is and how it begins and how it ends, and how the role of addiction professionals to prevent people from getting on that journey or to intervene as quickly as possible while there's still time for them to find the light at the end of the tunnel. We'll check this out and then we'll do some questions. Thanks. Well, I think that tells a story, folks. I saw some chats, folks who've seen this, who've used this in their groups, who my when my kids were even smaller than they are, one of them asked me, about kind of what I did for a living. It's kind of hard to explain what I do for a living. And I remember showing this to my daughter. She was probably maybe 6 at that time. She's 11 now. She's maybe 6. And she got it. She understood what this metaphor meant. And I think it's an important reminder about what that journey is like and how it starts out. And even when it's no longer working, it's no longer good, that the brain still calls for it and still chases it, even when it's nothing like it was at the beginning. That's the reality. So with that, I appreciate all your time and attention, and I would love to have any discussion that you would like to have. You can make some comments, share anything you want to, ask any questions. We can use this time however you'd like to.
I see that Rochelle has her hand up. Go ahead, Rochelle. You can jump on the mic or type into the chat.
Thank you. I was asking, I quickly looked up because I'm doing assignments at the same time. I'm a student at Purdue Global in the Psychology of Addictions program. And I quickly heard you pass over PS 124 and Peer Recovery Support Specialist.
That I think it was a different, I don't think it was 124.
PS 377 is the Models of Peer Recovery class.
377. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Looks like a great course. Just based on the description, it covers a lot of areas. And again, not a lot of universities have a course like that.
Yes, I really love it because it's going to take me from where I am to where I want to be, because I went from a soldier to a truck driver, and now because addiction, it fueled everything that I wanted to become in life, to get away from what I was surrounded by in Baltimore, growing up in the crack era.
Yes.
That's my motivation. So I love this course.
Well, that'll carry you a long way. It'll carry you a long way. Even when it's tough, even when you're getting discouraged, even when it's not that passion, the fact that you remember where it was and remember where you were and where you want to be. That's amazing. I'm looking forward to seeing you achieve that, and let me know if there's anything I can do to help you and support you and encourage you on this amazing journey you're on.
We have a question in the chat that I'll read. Andrew asks, does the NAADAC organization have a specific stance towards decriminalization? What efforts are being undertaken to lower barriers to entry for substance abuse treatment in rural communities? And then Andrew asks, like a national database aimed at triangulating patient populations to find geographically ideal locations for substance use clinics?
Well, let me say a couple things. I'll start with the first question you asked about our position on decriminalization. So, we haven't released, an official position statement on issues like that recently. Some years ago, and it still exists today, we released a statement in terms of marijuana in particular. And the position that was issued at that time that we haven't really revisited recently is that when it comes to marijuana, certainly recreational as well as medicine, that there still needs to be a lot more research before NAADAC and organizations like ours who are focused on people who are risk for addiction, until we can embrace or reject it. And that's the gist of the position statement that's now on the website. We do need to revisit that's several years old. We do need to find time to prioritize, revisiting that area to see if our position, should be refined in any way. The reality is that addiction professionals cover the spectrum, including those whose primary work are in attempting to reduce the harms of substance use, the harms of addiction, the harms of regulations. Those are addiction professionals too, many of them are. And so we haven't looked at that recently. In terms of reaching rural communities, that's an important part of not just how NAADAC works, but how like federal funders direct funding. In fact, especially in this current administration, we expect there to be, to the extent that we can get additional funding to help people living with addiction and co-occurring disorders, we expect that'll be in rural areas. There are a number of like SAMHSA. They have a rural toolkit, which is designed for rural areas, which has a map, and if we'll have time, I'll try to put a link in, which has a map that identifies areas based on, for instance, opiate overdose rates and other needs, and also divides it by rural areas in particular. So that right now exists to some extent at the federal level. I'd love to hear more about some of your ideas of how we take that to the next level, or how NAADAC might help with that in particular. We do know that just like there is in big urban areas, the issue is there might be lots of addiction professionals, but there also are a lot of people who need services. So there's a lack there. In rural areas, there just aren't enough providers. They're way too far apart. It's not like someone can hop on the subway, or even a bus to get to them. So in rural areas, there is absolutely a shortage of addiction professionals of all varieties, including those who deliver medications for addiction treatment, and that is a part of the focus. Federal funding is often targeted that way, and NAADAC, for instance, has a free webinar series, and we have 1 or 2 free webinars this year that focus on rural populations. And feel free to expand on your question more. If you have a suggestion, feel free to raise that, or anyone else.
There's a couple other hands up. So Jen has had her hand up, and then Laura has her hand up as well. Jen, do you want to go first, and then Laura?
Yeah, so I have a question. So the peer recovery or support, do you get like a certification too, or do you have to take that separate in your local area? I have a few questions.
The peer recovery support specialist credential? Is that what you're asking?
The one that's through Purdue. Yeah. Do you get a certificate, or do you have to take that separate in your area?
I don't know the answer to that. If you're referring to NAADAC's or NCAP's peer recovery support specialist credential, then that is a national credential that has an exam and other requirements. Perhaps
the only reason I ask is because my dad, he works for a place where that's what he does for a living, and so I didn't know if it was once you pass the class you get a certificate, or if you have to take, because the one that's in my area is like 40 hours additionally. So I didn't know if that was something separate. Does anyone at Purdue know if that's something that
I'll jump in. I'll jump in. So we offer a peer recovery support micro-credential, which is a series of classes. It's a 35 credit micro-credential that includes all the classes that meet the educational requirements for students to sit for NAADAC's national credential.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Sense.
And
yeah. And does anyone know how hard that test is?
Mm-hmm.
I'll let Terrance weigh in on the exam piece.
Well, part of the interesting thing about part of the firewall. Yeah, part of the firewall between NAADAC, the larger organization, and the commission is I'm really not allowed to know much about the test. I certainly can't input to it. I can't determine the questions, but I will say this, that the tests are based on like some core knowledge that individuals need at various levels of certification and credentialing. And NAADAC and other organizations work hard to offer lots of free resources to help people prepare for that. We also have a course you can purchase to help prepare for it. But member or not, we try to offer as much content as possible to help people prepare. And that's about all I can say on that. The pass, you don't have to have 100% to pass. There are different, percentages that have to be correct to pass. Usually it's right around the 70% range or so. And most people pass the test, but not everyone. And those who, if people don't give up, they usually eventually pass. If they have to take it again, they do so, get more training. I remember when I had to take my certification exam, it wasn't easy, but it's certainly, it's most people pass it, at least eventually.
I just get more nervous, but I think a lot of it's probably, in a way, most of the stuff that I probably learned, going through my addiction and my recovery, I probably learned a lot of it. I just get really nervous when any kind of certification, testing, that's just me. And then guess what? After it's done, I do really well on it. It's just an anxiety I have, I guess. So
you're not alone in that. You're not alone in that. You trust what you know, and then you learn. And one of why I didn't achieve it, I really wanted to eventually. I said I want to be a person who knows as much about addiction and treatment recovery as any person on earth. That's kind of how I went into it. So I was all into my classes, and I thought about it and asked questions and internalized it. But no, you're not alone in that. Most people, there are people who know the stuff, and test takes and anxiety makes it difficult for them to perform. But
in school, I used to have to,
Laura, do you want to ask your question? I realize sorry.
In high school, it was bad, but go ahead.
Yeah.
Next person.
I understand.
Go ahead, Laura.
Hello.
Hi.
I have a couple of questions. So I've been with Purdue. I went from bachelor's into master's. I'm taking my last class right now.
Wow.
And I'm about 1,000 hours away from my licensure in Jersey.
Okay.
Finishing my state classes this Thursday. So and I've been a student member of NAADAC, but I've never really had the time to dig in. I took a couple of webinars, but where would you recommend people like me who are like on the brink, right, of starting their own practice? That's kind of like my goal, to go into NAADAC to get resources, support. Like, is there anything? Because like even my state class provider, right, they were kind of like, well, go to the Department of Mental Health and Addictions Services, right? They will guide you through starting your own practice, starting maybe your own treatment center. Where would you recommend us to go? And on the NAADAC website, do you have resources for people like me? That's my first one. And then the second one is, would you recommend getting a certified, peer recovery credential on top of this and the prevention credential? Or should I just kind of like, stay where I'm at and then hire other people to work with me, and that's maybe also a question for Bridget. I'm not sure, because I see that there's a micro-credentialing, which I didn't even know about, so should I take that post-grad? I'm not sure, So I'm not really sure if that's helpful or, because you said like they are actually going to be reimbursed by insurances, does that help with service providing, so that's kind of like my question.
So I'll answer the first question. Is, there's lots of places. I think one thing, as a member, you automatically have access to the online community, to our forum, and I really encourage you to utilize that and ask that. Say, hey, listen, this is where I am. I'm kind of looking for some mentoring, some advice on that, and you'll probably find someone who say, oh, hey, let's connect. Especially if you're looking at private practice, there's a whole group of practitioners who engage, who are in private practice, who generally are really eager to sort of give back and mentor. That's moving the field forward. So I encourage you to make the most of that. You also, I don't know I know you're super busy. You have to be because of your studies, but sometimes get involved in one of the committees. Joining one of the committees, there's a smaller group of members of common interests. And in that, you can sort of develop these relationships, and people can help you along with that, and so I encourage all of that. We also have, an exhaustive library of webinars, free webinars that are still there. including some that focus on the business side of addiction services, and that's really important. We do some of that at our conference, as well as webinars on the business of addiction treatment. And so I think, all of that is there. And I don't know if anyone from Purdue wants to weigh in terms of, the credentials, which one you should go after. I don't have a lot of advice on that. I think you figure out what your core work is going to be sure that, that you have a credential to allow you to do the things you really most want to do. And especially if you are planning to recruit a team over time, then, certainly you want to have a team that can that hold credentials to cover the whole span of work. So, but I don't know if anyone else has advice on that. I always only had one, but that I also wasn't in private practice. So.
And just one question, I'm sorry, I forgot. Is there a state, like a New Jersey state advocacy group for NAADAC, or is it? I know you said you were in PA, right?
Our affiliate, yes, absolutely. We have, and
Okay.
I will, while we still are in the space, I'm gonna go ahead and send you a link to the New Jersey affiliate if you want to connect with them in some way. Absolutely.
Thanks.
Other questions, and I'm gonna try to multitask, pull this up while I am listening. Oh, I think we're
that's it for me.
Yeah.
That's it for me. So I don't know if anybody else wants.
All right. I think we are.
Well, this is Rochelle. I did have one other question because I, like Laura, I live in a small town in Georgia. So what I was considering was, upon completing all of my training, getting my master's degree and stuff, I wanted to open recovery homes because it's literally one between Macon and Warner Robins. So is it smart for me to have that the focus of business, or should I am I wasting money taking that class? Is what I'm asking basically.
Well, I think if you're going to do anything in the treatment recovery space where you're working with men, women in addiction and recovery, then you want to know as much as you can.
Okay.
In terms of how you set up the program, in terms of understanding that will help you do a better job at building a recovery residence or recovery program that meets their needs. So there's sometimes there are people out of our space who open those for the business end, and I don't criticize that. We're glad to have them, but sort of the sweet spot is a person who has informed themselves and in some cases credentialed themselves in the treatment of addiction, who then develop businesses to support it.
Okay, so, and you said we can, if after we join, we can find mentors that can guide us through. Because I'm only in my second semester. I gave up driving my tractor trailer to do all of this.
Yeah, well, no, absolutely. Once you remember you're part of the forum, and then that allows you the opportunity to to put kind of what's out there, what you're looking for. And people are, like people, especially when you get to my stage, you're really eager to get back, and it's exciting to find newer people joining the field. And so I don't think you have any issue finding folks who are going to be willing to mentor you, even if just informally.
Thank you. And thanks to Miss Bridget.
Laura, I'm going to send you that now.
While you're grabbing that, I think that's all the questions I see so far. Certainly thank everybody for being here, and thank you, Terrance, for your time. It's been a lot of great information. I've dropped into the chat also. There is a link with Purdue that breaks down by state some resources for the local licensing. So licensing, of course, is a state level regulation. Certifications are critical, that there are recognition of our experience in the field, and membership has so many benefits, as Terrance outlined, that are great to leverage our support in the field and get CEs, discounts, etc. There's also in there a workbook for gambling. There is, since this is Gambling Awareness Month. And so I'm going to pause there and again say thank you, everybody, for your being here and look forward to continued collaborations. Lakeisha, any other comments?
Hey, can I jump in real quick, Doc? So, absolutely. Laura, I couldn't find your name, so I sent the information to everybody in the chat. The first information is the president of our New Jersey affiliate, and then I put in there a link to the New Jersey affiliate's webpage. So,
perfect.
All right, go ahead, Keisha.
Just really quickly, I just wanted to echo Ken's sentiments. Thank you, Terrance, for providing such rich information to our students, alums, and faculty. And just as a reminder, this session is being recorded and it will go out within the next few days. But thank you all so much for your questions. If you all have any additional questions, you may reach out either to Ken, myself, any addiction faculty, of course, the NAADAC staff, and of course, Dr. Bridget Rivera for any additional questions about the program. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a wonderful evening.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.